Good afternoon and welcome to VirtuEL 2020. I'm JODY NOLF and welcome to this session entitled Supporting Content Area Teachers with ESOL Strategies. Let's get started. I'm excited. Are you? Let's go. So before we talk about what some ESOL strategies are, I actually want to start talking about what ESOL strategies are not. And ESOL is not translation only. ESOL is strategies. And we're going to start this session by doing a little practice so that you can really fully understand why. And I also want to start by saying that using translation alone is a very common strategy in many traditional schools. But let's look at why translation alone is not enough to really get our ELL learners to master content. So here is a text. It's in Bosnian. And I don't know about you, but Bosnian is not my first language. English is my first language. So I want you to look at this for just a second, but I'm going to accommodate you. And I'm actually going to provide you the translation so that you can read it. So take a couple of seconds and let's look at this text. Do you understand it now? Did anything resonate with you? This is what many of our ELLs experience every day. I provided it in heritage language, so you should be ready for the test next week, correct? Because you can read it. Aha. But reading and comprehension are two different things. Now, translation applications in and of themselves are not horrible, and sometimes they are absolutely necessary, but they are designed to enhance the learning, not supplant true mastery of content. So think of this little exercise whenever some teachers rush to translate text without providing any strategies. So where do we begin? Well, just like any good lesson, we need to start with a plan. So I've designed a very easy to use template to use either with a collaborative support teacher, a co-teacher, or some of your content area teachers might not have any support in their classrooms at all, whether they are in traditional classrooms or in the virtual classroom. Some teachers are going completely solo, but this template is easy to use no matter what model your classroom uses with your ELLs. So I want to show you the basics, and we're going to break it down into halves. So let's look at this. Take just a second. The content area teacher and the ESOL support teacher work together to develop strategies to support ELL learners. So the content area teacher will use the left side of this template. And let's look at these categories more in depth. We have, as always, the standards, our roadmap, what materials to use, the skills, any prior knowledge, the key concepts and ideas, meaning the vocabulary, the assessment, any upcoming lesson. And I want you to pay particular attention to the ESOL accommodations box at the bottom. You may be saying, but that belongs on the other side. No, the content area teacher is also responsible for providing those ESOL accommodations, which is what I'm here today to help facilitate for you. I also want you to notice that in italics, I have plain language of what all the boxes mean. This could be very helpful for you, especially in a virtual environment, because you may have a Google Meet with your support teacher and you're not side by side, and you may have a little bit of difficulty communicating, but this template that you can each use and then share in a Google Doc or in a presentation or in a meeting, a virtual meeting, this template can help explain some of those concepts for you in very plain language. So let's look at the collaborative teacher side. What I need as far as materials, how I'll offer language support, how I'll connect what students already understand to the new skills. And that matches the prior knowledge on the left. How I'll explain the words and ideas so students will understand. My role during the assessment to ensure understanding. Planning ahead, any key ideas the students need for the next lesson. And then of course at the bottom, how I'm supporting our ELLs. So let's plan a science lesson. Let's look at this. We have our content area science teacher. And the first part of the column shows the materials. And this is a very fun lesson. It's very interactive. It's called Sweet Observations and Inferences. Those are academic terms. And I want to talk about that in just a minute. What we're doing, we're going to have the students observe data and record data using Candy, which is always a great interest grabber. Students will learn the difference between qualitative and quantitative data. Students will understand making an inference from an observation. Any prior knowledge? Well, we know that the students already have been assessed on how to properly record data. They know the 5 senses. They know the ideas of difference, record, and data. But let's look at the bottom of that middle box. Key vocabulary, qualitative, quantitative, data, observe, inference. Those are academic concepts. This is not watered down content at all. These are the same concepts and vocabulary words that are on state assessments, local assessments, classroom tests. They're the same terms that every student, whether they're an ELL learner or not, needs to master. This is not about watering down content. It's about scaffolding. It's about making the academic language and the content accessible for ELL learners. We know that there is an assessment coming up. We know that we're going to be going into chapter 5, talking about hypotheses, theories, and laws. And notice the part that I've highlighted. Now, again, this is the side of the content area teacher. The content area teacher is making her own accommodations, which includes eliminating 2 choices per test item and reinforcing the use of science journals. So let's look at some key ESOL strategies that are simple for all area teachers. And again, it's moving a little bit slowly, so we'll just give it a second. ESOL support teachers' accommodations include small group, previewing, circling words, identifying those cognates, pictures, reviewing, pointing out, using a lot of gestures. Again, determining understanding through pictures. That's how I, as the ESOL support teacher, will help explain the words so students will understand. And we're going to look at some of these ideas in a virtual setting and how we can make it work. The other point that I want to clarify about this template is this is a good communication piece. This side of the ESOL teacher's template communicates to the content area teacher side, this is how I'm going to explain the concepts we're learning in the classroom. My role is to make sure that students have their science journals, heritage dictionaries, which in the virtual world may include Google Translate, the IM Translator, anything that can accommodate them during virtual learning. And I'm going to refer to chart paper of key terms as reinforcement. Now you may be thinking, but chart paper, that's for a traditional classroom. You could do this in a virtual classroom as well. It can be your backdrop. You can use a Jamboard which I will explain and show you an example of later on in this presentation. Jamboard is a terrific digital resource for having a digital piece of chart paper. And of course, I'm going to use real world examples, and we're going to look at that more in depth in just a minute. Teaching vocabulary. I want to explain this a little bit more in depth because many content area teachers come to me and say, where do I start? How I'm going to explain those words, how I'm going to reinforce, how I'm going to choose the words. Start with your standards. Don't treat your ELLs any differently in terms of what they need to know. We only accommodate how they're going to know it, how they're going to get it, which are the accommodations and the scaffolds. So let's look at a video clip between me and a 7th grade ELL science teacher. And we're going to be talking about making those accommodations and explaining those key ideas. What are some of the key vocabulary words that you need me teaching that day?
For sure, observation and inference.
Okay.
And the qualitative again and quantitative. So those 4 words are really what this activity is focusing on.
Okay.
And I found that the difference between observation and inference is hard for them.
Gotcha.
So we need to make sure that we kind of get that going for them so they're able to do this activity.
So what I'm thinking is, because quality and quantity, they already kind of know those stems from the underlining.
Yep.
I'm going to really reinforce the difference, and I'm going to use cognates that at least I know. For example, I know that quanto means how much, so that refers to quantity. So I'm going to use whatever I can cognate-wise. I'm also going to determine understanding through a lot of pictures, because I feel like I can't really rely on any native language that I know, and because for my students who might not be Spanish speakers who don't know that.
Right.
So I'm going to use pictures, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have them maybe, like if I have a picture of maybe 5 bananas, I'll have them count for quantity, but then I'm going to have them describe it for the quality, and they could do that through pictures.
Perfect.
I'm going to ask them based upon what they see, what they might think, and that could reinforce the inference.
The inference and the observation.
So for example, if we have like a green banana and a yellow banana and a brown one, based upon what they observe, what can they infer about it? About maybe which one is the most ripe, which one isn't ripe yet. Exactly. So I want to kind of do inference that way through pictures. So notice that I was working with the content area teacher. We could do that in a Google Meet very, very easily. We could each have the template in front of us. We could be working in a Google Doc and plan together that way through virtual learning. So let's look at some key strategies in detail. We can use an interactive smartboard and create activities that either include a word bank or don't. Notice the terms at the bottom. This is the academic language, where the students will drag and drop: inferencing, observing, conclusion, qualitative, and it's colorful, it's interactive, and this could easily be shown in a Google Meet. If we are not in a traditional classroom for the students to actually interact with the smartboard, you can just do it through a virtual experience. I also add that once the paragraph is complete, you can have your ELLs practice writing it. Practice their writing domain by having them write out the paragraph. Word walls. Word walls are terrific. They really decorate your walls. You could provide little pictures that give clues to the meaning. Again, this could be displayed behind you. It could also be on a Jamboard. This could all be displayed right in your virtual classroom. Infographics, these are fabulous. Here's an infographic that I made. Did not take me long. I did it right through a Word doc. You could use a Google Doc. It's a very simple table, did not take me long, where I have the word, again, the academic language. Nothing is watered down for these students. The definition, and then a really good strategy is to have students draw a picture. Remember, we want to make sure that they understand what they're learning, but how they're learning it can be modified in many different ways. This could also be scaffolded in many different ways as well. So for a beginning speaker, I may have many of the definitions worked in where they can communicate meaning through a picture. My more proficient students, they may be able to do more of the writing. You just add or delete parts of your boxes to accommodate the level of your learner. Very easy to scaffold. Sentence frames and stems. These are my other favorites. So here's one I made, again, using the academic language. I observe, I infer, and I also have, this is qualitative or quantitative data. My beginning speakers, I would probably have them circle. My more proficient speakers, I may not even have those choices down there. They may need to know them by memory or from their science journals. Very easy to scaffold. Again, once these frames are filled in, have your students write out the entire paragraph. That way, they're learning the flow of language rather than just chunks of information. I always have them write out the entire paragraph, maybe at the bottom of the page or on the back. Again, this could be something that is typed into a Google Doc and submitted in virtual learning. Very easy to do. Scaffolds, visuals, and student work. Adaptations of assessments. This, the content area teacher can do by crossing out 2 choices on test items. Very, very simple to do. You just make copies and scaffold as necessary. For example, this may be a strategy you use for your beginning speakers. Your more proficient or intermediate speakers, you may just eliminate 1 choice, depending upon the needs of your students. Number 2 says, draw an example of quantitative data. This I would use for maybe my less proficient students who are just emerging speakers. And my more proficient writers, they may write out a sentence. Number 3 says fill in the blank. Qualitative data is anything you can blank, such as color, taste, or smell. I have a very brief word bank of 3 choices. I may even narrow that to 2 for my newcomers. I may take it away completely for my proficient speakers. Again, you adjust as necessary. Very easy to do in a Google Doc as well. Very easy to do in virtual learning. Cognate lists. These are fabulous. You can have them posted around the room in a traditional classroom or have as your backdrop, have as a Google slide that you merge right into a Jamboard slide. And journals. Many content area teachers infuse journals now, especially with math and science. Now you may say, but in a virtual environment, how can I have a journal? It's very simple. Rather than a actual paper pencil experience, the students can journal into a Google Doc that they can submit to you and just add to as they need. And then you remind them to pull those out as they need them. For example, for an assessment, you can insert Jamboard slides into it, Google Slides, Smartboard activity slides. You can make it a virtual digital journal for them. And that's really fun for them as well. So let's summarize the key strategies and scaffolds. We use word walls that have cognates, key vocabulary, etc. And then we gradually remove them as the students master concepts. So at the beginning of your virtual school year or your traditional classroom school year, once you know the levels of your students, you may need cognates and word walls covering your classroom or your backdrop. But you gradually take that away as they master them. We provide infographics. And we just simply add or delete information in the boxes for varied levels of learners. We model circling, underlining, reviewing. Those are all those I do, we do, you do. We allow more confident students to work independently or in pairs or groups. You can do this in a virtual experience. You just create breakout rooms. You just establish the rooms, you establish the parameters, and you adjust the number or different criteria per group. And you could have it in a virtual experience. We adapt assessments by eliminating choices, offering alternatives for responding, such as drawing or acting out. We provide word banks, sentence frames, and stems. We just adjust the number of possible multiple choice answers and word bank choices. Some final points of this presentation. ESOL, remember, is not translation. ESOL is strategies. Smile. A warm welcome is universal in all languages. So on that first virtual day or traditional classroom day, when you have that student walk in, just smile. Make them feel welcome. Use gestures and movement to convey meaning. Remember that this planning sheet and all the strategies can be used virtually in distance learning. Your word wall can be created with Jamboard, or even can be posted as part of your backdrop in a Google Meet or a Zoom meeting. And finally, relax. We've all felt lost at some point. You'll get there, we promise. So here is a Jamboard slide that you can access through this bit.ly link, and you can actually post some digital sticky notes. This is a great activity to do with your students as well. So I ask you to post your own sticky note of any takeaways from today's session. I also give you some brief instructions, such as how to post a sticky note, how to insert images, and how do you save your Jamboard. Jamboard is a great tool, so I encourage you to use it and to respond to this one. So let's connect. I'm on Twitter. You can reach me at JODY NOLF. I also have a website and a Padlet. I will also be uploading everything from today's presentation right into those as soon as possible. So now I'd love to be able to address any questions that you have, and we could chat further. So let's see. So the question is this for co-teaching or for working in groups? And every school is different. Every virtual experience is different. Every classroom is different. This can be used in any experience because you adjust it to fit the needs of your classroom. Some of you will not have support facilitation in your classroom. So you would simply take the template that I created and use it as your own planning sheet to have all of your ESOL accommodations on one side where you plan your lesson on the other. Your lesson plan will go on the left side. Your ESOL accommodations can go on the right. And that way you can have everything you need in one handy guide. You can also use it with a co-teaching experience, planning together. But all of this can be adjusted. And speaking of making adjustments, I also want to stress that even if you're an elementary teacher, these are great strategies to use. They don't necessarily need to be used in only a secondary environment. So let's see if there are any other questions that we have. Let's see. Now, I was told that the Jamboard is not functioning right now, so I will make sure that that is adjusted and we'll take care of that immediately. And I would love to have you respond to that. That would be fabulous if you respond to the Jamboard. So let's see if there are other questions. It seems that there are no more questions for today, but I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to look into that Jamboard link because I would love to hear responses from you. And again, please feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me through Twitter. You can find my email address on my website and on my Padlet. I would love to connect with you and take more of your questions and your wonderful suggestions. Have a great day. Thank you.